Hi, I'm Jack, and these are some of my thoughts on the two films that we watched. The first one I watched was The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which going into it, I wasn't really sure what to expect just because I've never really seen a movie like this. But I was definitely pleasantly surprised, and there were aspects of the movie that I was extremely impressed by. One of them was the set design, which there were lots of these paintings in some of the scenes that were extremely detailed and intricate and did a lot of the heavy lifting for setting the tone of the film. They also did a good job of reflecting the psychology of Francis, who we were being told the story of this town through his perspective, and he has a very damaged psyche and lots of dark thoughts, and that is reflected in the look of the town with all of its dark shadows and weirdly shaped buildings. The sets that were the most memorable, some of them were the ones when the doctor was running away from the police and he's running through the town and you see all these landscapes. Like you see these trees that are angled weirdly and they're just black in the distance, and there's all these strange symbols on the ground, which they just do a great job of, yeah, like bringing the audience into this strange world and making the audience feel certain emotions. Um, the other film, Nosferatu, I'd say I enjoyed slightly less than The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. That being said, there are definitely aspects of Nosferatu that I really enjoyed. Like some of the imagery, some of the shots in the film are just extremely iconic. And like even someone like me, 100 years after the film's release, have seen references in other media to certain shots in the movie, like the one of him rising from the coffin on the boat. I thought was great, and also the shot of Count Orlok in his castle when the door swings open by himself and he's standing in the doorway. They, I think, are very simple and they do a great job of instilling fear into the audience. Similarities between the two films, both both of these movies use shadows in very similar ways. Of course, the use of these long shadows are it's one of the main components of German expressionism, and I thought that uh, the use of the shadows did a good job of adding mystery to the film, and also just instilling fear into the audience because there's just something intrinsically like scary and mysterious about shadows, especially when you in the way that they're used, like when you see Count Orlok moving up the stairs and you can only see a shadow near the end of Nosferatu. There's just something mysterious about it. Another similarity between the two films is the themes in both of them relating to World War One and the aftermath of World War One. I know that the director of Nosferatu, F.W. Murnau, he fought in World War One, and you can see the some of the influences in the film. One connection I made, which I'm not sure if it was intentional, was the prevalence of rats in the story and the disease that they brought to the town. Could be seen as sort of a connection to in World War One in the trenches on the battlefield. Rats were just everywhere, and disease was spread among soldiers just rapidly. So I thought that was one connection I made in the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I thought that the sort of, off center, strange, dark nature of the town depicted in that film just reflected um, Robert Wine's, thoughts of Germany at the time and its, poor economy and its just the dark, the gloomy psyche of a lot of the citizens were depicted through that town in that film. In terms of differences between the two films, one of them is that I thought that the way the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari tried to instill fear into the audience was much more psychological and almost tried to tap into like more of a subconscious part of the audience's brain, while in Nosferatu it feels much more direct in how it's trying to instill fear into the audience. Like just the look of Count Orlok and his design, as well as um, just the overall like fear of vampires that people have. Like this is just the thing that people are afraid of. It just feels much more direct. While in the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, it's much more psychological, especially with the ending where you realize that the entire story is just, made up by a man in an asylum. And it just leaves the audience with more to chew on, more to think about. And I think that's one reason why I enjoyed the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari more than Nosferatu. Another difference between the two films is the mise en scène in the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is much more surreal, much more fantastical when compared to Nosferatu. I thought that the visuals of Nosferatu were just more realistic. They weren't extremely realistic, of course, like the castle and those like little big chairs you see in the castle. There still are definitely expressionistic and surreal aspects to the visuals, but I just thought that they felt more, down to earth when compared to those really weird and intricate paintings of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. The book, one thing that was mentioned in the book that stuck with me was that some people refer to expressionism and German expressionism as drawings brought to life, which I thought that was a great way of describing this kind of filmmaking because a drawing or a painting, you're able to just express yourself, and any emotions you want to express you're able to just put onto the canvas, and there's just not a lot of restrictions in what you can do with the medium and the emotions you're trying to convey. While if you are trying to be realistic and keep things in your film trying to be down to earth, it may just like there are restrictions in the types of things you can show, the types of things you want the audience to feel. While expressionism, like a painting, you can put anything on the canvas, you can make the audience feel any way you want. And I thought that was just a good way of describing that. Overall, my if I had to give a score to the movies, so I'd say that I appreciated these movies more than I enjoyed them earnestly, because I don't have the same mindset of a moviegoer 100 years ago watching these movies. So it's hard for me to be extremely invested emotionally into the stories, but there still are aspects of both movies that I appreciate and can take away stuff from. So if I had to give a score, I'd probably say like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is a 7 out of 10 and Nosferatu is a 6 out of 10. And yeah, thanks for listening.